Greetings, barbecue family. Welcome to another live episode of the Backyard Smokemaster Barbecue Podcast. I'm your host, Kenyatta Robinson. Very happy today that I'm going to be joined by Todd Johns of Plowboys Barbecue. And let's just get right into it. I'm going to bring Todd in right now. So hold on here. There he is.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Well, thanks again, for agreeing to come on. I know that you had been watching a few of our previous episodes and were, out there in the comment in the chat section. So I do appreciate that, and very happy to have you on. I also want to encourage everyone who is watching, please jump in here, jump in the comments. We're just two guys that love barbecue, chatting it up. So, as we talk about different things, if there's questions that you have for Todd or for me or for, anything barbecue related, even if we may not have a certain expertise in that area, we'll give it a shot and try and answer the question or give a perspective. We're already getting some comments, which I do appreciate. Let me get some of these up here. We got Real Meat Stick. Let me fix that. Let's make that easier to read. Okay, Real Meat Stick, good evening to you. Appreciate you coming in. Let's see. Trying to figure out, where's the best place to put these comments?
I'm glad that that's not the fake meat stick. I don't know, who the fake meat stick is, but I'm glad we got the real one here, Ken.
Yeah. And I think you guys
only the real meat sticks are going to be on the Ken show.
And you guys seem to know each other, right?
No, I don't know who the real meat stick is.
Oh, you don't? Okay. For some reason, I thought that you guys knew each other. But yeah, Real Meat Stick is also behind the Smoke Slinger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to get him on as well on a future podcast. And he says,
Smoke Slinger. So I host and produce a barbecue radio show. We're the largest syndicated weekly barbecue radio show in the country. We're in all 50 states. And Frank Cox, who is Meat Slinger, Smoke Slinger, is our show this weekend. So coming up tomorrow on all of our 82 or 92 radio stations that we're on, we'll be airing a show with Frank, and then it goes to podcast next week. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, now tell me again, what's the name of your radio show?
Yeah, so we're Barbecue Radio Network. This is our 5th season, Barbecue Radio Network. We're the largest weekly nationally syndicated barbecue radio show in the country. We're on under 100, about 90 radio stations, and we air every week, usually Saturday, Sunday, depending on the station, and then our archives go to podcast the following week. So Andy Groneman is my best friend. We've known each other for almost 20 years. We've cooked together. We've competed together. We've done all kinds of things together. He and I co-host together. He's the host, and I'm the co-host. And we get guys like Frank Cox. Al Fragoni was last week. Megan Day is coming into the studio Monday to record. Matt Frampton, who's part of Urban Slicer. He is a grilling pizza guy out of Omaha, Nebraska. He's coming in the following week. So we tend to get a lot of the, Hall of Fame and name brands and people. And the whole point of the show is to educate the backyard griller, the backyard smoker. Our goal is to make everybody better.
Yep.
And so it's not so much about us or even so much about our guests. It's really about getting education out for our listeners.
Okay. Now see, now this is I had no idea. Now see, I was
Mm,
just thinking, I know Plowboys from the rubs, that you have out there. And
yes,
then I
sir.
was, kind of piddling around looking at your website, and I thought I saw something about a restaurant. Is that still
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bio, a little background. So we
okay?
started. This is our 25th anniversary of Plowboys, and it started with my brother-in-law and I. Whenever I would show up to family gatherings, like I was the first person that was new in the family in a long time, and he kind of took pity on me and wanted try to come up with something to talk about. We ended up talking about barbecue, and in October of 2000, we went to the American Royal Barbecue in Kansas City and took the judging class
Hmm.
for KCBS, the Kansas City Barbecue Society.
Yep.
And the intention was to go through the class to understand what the judges were looking for, so that um, the following year we could start competing. And so in 2001 we started competing, and so we say that's when we were established. So this is our 25th year. We competed quite a bit throughout those years. Um, didn't win our first grand champion until 2007. And back then, back in the day, as we say, folks really weren't giving up a lot of information. They weren't giving up their secrets. There weren't classes to go to. There weren't YouTube videos. There weren't podcasts like this or radio shows like mine. There just wasn't a lot of information to be had. And people kept that stuff pretty close to the chest.
Right.
And I always say that we sucked for a long time before it started to click. And in 2007, we won our first grand champion. That was also the same year. And in fact, this month is the 18th anniversary or the 18th birthday of our very first product, Yardbird Rub, which is what we're known for. I've got 10 products, but Yardbird outsells all of them put together. We'll do this last year, we did almost 50 tons of Yardbird Rub. When we had the restaurants, we were doing close to 80 to 90 tons of rub. Um, so, so anyway, we competed for a long time. We started to get some products out. We won the American Royal. We're a 4-time champion at the American Royal. We've won 3 categories: brisket, pork, and sausage. And then we won the overall grand champion in 2009 for the Invitational. And the Invitational at the American Royal is all grand champions from the previous year. So we were competing against every competitor that had won a grand champion the previous year. In 2013, opened a restaurant, and then uh, throughout the 10 years of having restaurants, we opened 4 restaurants. We were the official barbecue of the Kansas City Chiefs. We were at Arrowhead Stadium for 5 years. We had 4 concession stands out there, and Ken, we had 27 cashiers across 4 concession stands. We would do gross sales of like $65,000 in a 4.5 hour period. That's a lot of barbecue.
Yeah.
The stadium, of course, took their fair share and then some, but that was actually one of the things I was most proud of throughout my whole career. Is one of the things I'm most proud of is doing concessions at Arrowhead, because Arrowhead is a Kansas City is a barbecue city. Arrowhead is a tailgate venue, a tailgate stadium, but to do something at that scale I'm a farm kid from Northwest Iowa. Like, this is the fact that I'm doing anything is kind of cool. So, to do Yardbird, to do the American Royal, to do Arrowhead, those are probably the 3, things that I'm most proud of in my 25 years. But that's a little background on, where, who I am and our journey. And man, I've got so many people that have come along for the ride. It's been amazing.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing your background. I had no idea that I had stumbled on a world champion. That's awesome.
Anymore, a world champion, you can throw a rock and hit four of them, I think. So I don't know if that's such a big deal or not, but I appreciate it.
Well, so guys, while we've got him with us, so I always say every week that the comments, the questions that we get from our audience is really the engine that drives the podcast. So I definitely welcome you all to come on in and ask some questions, because it's Todd has a wealth of experience. Um, just doing some of it all. I've also taken that Kansas City KCBS judging class, and I became a certified judge myself, because they were doing some courses here in Clayton, where I live in California. Um, but I have not, done any competing. That's like one avenue that I don't know. I've kind of been iffy about whether or not I wanted to get involved with any competitions. But I definitely, would love to hear, your perspective. Let me ask you. So you mentioned that, one of your goals and inspiration, which I really appreciate, is to inspire, the backyard cook. How would you compare, the kind of just the everyday backyard barbecue experience to, you know, like what it takes in order to be, competitive, on the competition circuit? Like, is there like a difference in the flavor profiles, or what are you trying to do when you're trying to compete?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I'll start with like more so how are they similar?
Okay.
And it's interesting tonight, as I was, um, I was sitting here knowing this was coming up, and thought I'd spend a little time on my computer going through some old photos and stuff, and cleaning out old photos. And I had come across an archive of photos from 2006, 2007, 2008. And there was a mix back in the day, back in that time, this was almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. I was writing for a food blog out of New York. This was before a lot of the podcasts and stuff. And I was looking back through the photos as I was cooking in my kitchen, cooking at home, and putting stuff out for this grilling food blog. And just looking at the photos and remembering back to that time where I was like, I deleted a lot of the photos because it's just like stuff it would be laughable today. The quality of, I mean, just stuff you see on Facebook that people are doing every day. The quality of those photos are so different than 18 years ago. Um, and the plating and the
Yeah.
attention to detail and the passion. But what I remember and what I see today in even myself and other people is the passion. And I think that's the thing that's consistent between the backyard, the person that's not a world champion, the person that's not a competitor, the person that's not doing this for publicity or whatever. They're just doing it because they love it. They're doing it because they want to not just impress their friends. They want their friends to be happy. And that's the thing about barbecue is it's not so much about impressing, it's about pleasing.
Right.
And we want people to be pleased with what we've done, with what we've created, with what we've spent time and toiled over. Um, it's not about the impressed, to be impressed and to be the king of the backyard. And we say those things, but it's really in the heart of every griller, every barbecuer, is this want to please people. We want
Yep.
people to walk away going, man, that was an amazing experience, an amazing meal, etc. And I think that's the passion of cooking, the cooking, whether you're a competitor, whether you're someone that cooks in your own home for others, that thing that brings you joy, that's what's the consistent thing between kind of both of those schools. And the restaurant people, I've been a restaurateur as well. And the thing that I got the most joy out of being a restaurateur um, was not spending a lot of money on groceries and making very little. Um, but it was the customers that enjoyed their meal, the customers that enjoyed coming back again. It was that whole satisfaction thing. So I think passion is really the thing that binds all of us as cooks, no matter how we classify ourselves: a chef, a backyard cook, a a novice, a professional, whatever you want to like classify yourself as. I think it's that passion that unites us all and defines us all as grillers. I know that's really not your question, but as I
No,
was thinking,
no.
as I was listening to your question, I think that's the thing that was coming to mind.
No, I appreciate that, and I completely agree. And I think we're getting comments where folks also what you're talking about. The passion that we cook with is resonating, with folks, and that desire to make people happy, with our barbecue. I think that's something that we all have in common, and can definitely relate to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
correction.
as I was looking back to my old pictures, I was just remembering how like excited I was, and even though now I look at that and go, "Oh, I would never show that picture to anyone again. Let's delete it." I still remember that I was really passionate about it. I was really, and I had accomplished none of the things I had talked about earlier. Like I was still new to all this, but yet the passion was there. And um, and the fact that I just kind of was looking at those tonight probably is why I'm in the memory lane kind of thing. But
Sure.
and the difference between cooking, we'll say the backyard, but really it's cooking for your friends and family versus cooking for judges, is you're really not cooking for judges. You're really cooking for prizes. You're really
Mm.
cooking for trophies and money, and trophies and prize purses. But really what you're, I think, even cooking for more so is accolades and respect, and recognition. The trophy is just something that you hold and take a picture of. And I mean, I've got an attic full of trophies, and at this point they mean nothing. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do with those things. But at the time, it was credibility. It was, so I think a lot of people that compete, it's for that. It's the thrill of walking to the stage, of hearing your name called, of feeling like you did a good job, feeling like, hey, I was able to compete in a field of good cooks. And so it's all of those things. It's
Yeah.
so much, the purpose is so much different than cooking for your friends and family.
So did competing and being successful, would you say that helped your business?
um, the process of competing definitely helped my business. um, as a competitor, throughout the years, I would try to, once I figured out kind of what worked for me, the flavor profiles and everything, and the process, um, I would start to scale things back. So at one point, I remember my ribs were like 11 steps. And every contest, I would try to see if I could pull back one step and see if that made a difference, or pull back an ingredient and see if that made a difference. So a good example is I used to spritz my ribs in competition with apple juice, and it wasn't just some apple juice; it was like the best apple juice.
Mm-hmm.
And and then one time I thought, well, I'm just going to spritz it with water. Like, why do I need apple juice? That's one more thing I got to buy at the grocery store. I already got bottled water. And I started spritzing with water. My scores didn't change. My results didn't change. And that was one less thing I had to worry about. So the fewer things you have to focus on in any cook, whether or not you're a competitive cook or you're a home cook, it doesn't matter. The fewer variables you have, the more you can focus on those variables. So instead of having 11 steps in my ribs, if I could get that down to 8, now I can do those 8 a lot better than I can do the 11. And so that was always my philosophy in competing was, let's eliminate some variables and see if we can get consistent results. The thing about competition barbecue is you want consistency. You want the same results week after week, and you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and changing recipes every week. I mean, it's micro changes. The same with restaurants. Restaurants, you want the exact same food every meal, every day, every location. Boy, you go from one location to 2 to 3 to 4. I mean, it's complexities times 100.
Right.
So we were to answer your question, in the restaurant, we were very process oriented because that's how I was on the competition trail. And that's the only way I knew how to produce consistent results.
Okay. And I'm while I was listening to you, especially you were talking about how you went from using top shelf apple juice, and eliminating that, using water and getting the same results. That's been part of my own journey, as well. So that kind of made me feel good. So I do have a question here from Correctional Officer for Lockdown. He says, Todd, what would you consider to be the difference between American barbecue and international grilling, barbecue, etc.?
Well, I would encourage you to go to Barbecue Radio Network and look at the show that we just put to podcast yesterday with Al Fragoni. Al Fragoni is in Texas, but he's originally from Argentina. And we talked to Al at length about Argentinian open fire cooking, which is called asado. And I actually went to Argentina in November and did a 3-week tour there, and got to learn a lot about Argentinian cooking. It is so different from American barbecue or American grilling even, or even Australian grilling. They don't really season anything. They use a little bit of salt and that's it, but it's all open fire. Sometimes we say live fire. Well, an offset pit is a live fire. A pellet pit is a live fire. They use open fire, meaning that the food isn't in a chamber. It's on a grill. It doesn't have a hood, and it is a different experience. They use different cuts. They use a lot of organ meat, which to us, like, I can't even think of a place where I can get even blood sausage or something like that here in the States. It's just a very different cultural experience. So if you're interested in Argentinian asado, I would definitely encourage you to listen to our show with Al Fragoni and follow Al Fragoni. He is probably one of the next big things, if not already. here in the States, because he's doing something different and he's bringing open fire to America, and we just don't cook like that. But at the same time, Al has a huge respect and appreciation for American barbecue, for low and slow, for closed pit kind of cooking. And he's really done a great job of kind of combining the two cultures. So internationally, I mean, obviously Argentina, I just talked about that. Andy Groneman, who's the host of the show, has spent some time in Korea. He actually went over there last year to Korea for about a month, taught a lot of their restaurants how to do American barbecue and kind of fused that with some Korean flavors. Like they can't get, they don't have sourced a lot of the spices that we would use. So he helped them try to find like Korean versions of similar spices we would have in North America and create this kind of maybe Americanized Korean barbecue with American barbecue process.
Yeah.
So quite interesting. The things that Andy did in Korea last year.
Okay. Now, Real Meat Stick asked, do you think that the Argentinian grilling craze is a fad or is it here to stay?
No, well, Argentinian grilling is not a fad. It is part of their culture. So in terms of Argentina, it is it's apple pie. It is as Argentinian as baseball and apple pie is to America. Here in America, here in the States, is it a fad or a trend or something? I think it's going to catch a lot of people's attention. Whether or not open fire is something that they want to sit and do in their backyards is to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Will we be buying parrillas, which is the Argentinian grill? Will we be buying parrillas and crucibles? Crucible is where you take typically like a whole animal and put it leaning over the fire like a crucifix.
Yeah.
That's the asador style of Argentina. Are we going to be doing that in our backyards? I doubt it, but I think that open fire will be something that will draw a crowd at every festival, every place where it's showcased. It's going to draw a crowd because it's something so interesting and different than what we've experienced here. And you can see it. You can see the fire. You can see the food.
Right.
You can see them working it like it's a show. So, I don't see it coming to the backyards. I don't see like if you're a grill manufacturer, I wouldn't be like making a bunch of parrillas right now. They may not sell right away, but I think it's something that will get showcased more and more at live events.
That makes sense. I can see that as well. All right, Real Meat Stick also asked, do you have any tips preparing different rubs with specific cuts of meat or proteins?
Well, I think great question. I think when it comes to beef, let's talk about that. I think there's really kind of to make this as simple as possible, I think there's really two schools. There's beef, wild game, things that have a lot of character by nature and have a lot of they bring a lot to the table in terms of flavor anyway. And then there's chicken and pork and things that are very subtle in flavor naturally. So when I'm thinking, and I'm going to say not just rubs, but just rubs and smoke, right? So if I've got a pork, if I've got a chicken, if I've got turkey, if I've got something that doesn't naturally bring a lot to the table in terms of flavor, I'm going to reach for um, woods that are smoking woods that are going to perfume that in a way that I want. So, we talk about two different types of woods. We talk about nut woods and fruit woods, and fruit woods are fruit bearing woods. Apple, cherry, uh, peach is a great one. Mulberry, like you can go down the list. Pear. So they're going to bring more of a sweetness. And the cherry is my favorite because not only does it bring a bit of sweetness to the meat, but it brings a lot of color.
Yeah.
So something like a chicken, a turkey, a pork is going to accentuate that more, whereas beef, like, it's going to drown it out. Beef has so much flavor naturally that it's going to drown out a lot of those things you're trying to get from the apple. Like, I don't think if I, did a brisket with apple, I would even taste the apple. It's going to be so much brisket. And then, then you've got nut woods, and I'll get to the rubs in a second, but then you've got nut woods, hickory, pecan. Pecan is basically a cousin of hickory. They're very close. But hickory tends to have a bitterness to it, especially when you reheat it. So if you've got any leftovers, like the next day, it's like, whoa, this is really strong. And then, the next day you're in the bathroom and like, who's smoking? Oh no, I'm peeing hickory.
Oh, wow.
So hickory tends to be a little strong. That's why, we typically, like, competition people typically prefer pecan.
Okay.
And then there's oak and, all the different hardwoods. Maple is a little more subtle, but those kind of woods work better with a wild game, with a beef, because they're going to kind of be bold enough to hang with that beef flavor. When it comes to rubs, if I'm talking beef and wild game, I want bold flavors. I want black pepper. I want ancho. I want if I'm going spicy, I don't want cayenne. I want like a chipotle. I want something that's going to bring a little more flavor than just the heat.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm talking beef, I want something that's got, a rub, a seasoning that's got a little oomph to it, because if I don't, then it's just going to get drowned out. Again, on the pork and chicken and poultry side, I want things that are going to really pop. I want probably more citrus. I like garlic. Garlic warms the mouth. And so garlic is kind of, I cook with a lot of garlic and a lot of onion just in anything I cook. So on the, the lighter side of things, a fruit wood with, a rub that's got some citrus, maybe not so much black pepper, maybe a little white pepper, and more herbal kinds of things on those, because they're going to just stand out a little bit more, and they don't need to be so bold. You can get more subtle flavors with a pork and a poultry.
Great. These are great tips. I definitely appreciate that. You brought up a lot of aspects about pairing, woods, spices, with the protein that I know I hadn't thought about and taken into consideration. So I'll definitely appreciate that. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about, the genesis of of your rubs.
Okay.
So did that come out of, your competing, or what led you to formulate like the Yardbird Rub?
Yeah. The story goes with Yardbird that when my brother-in-law and I first decided we wanted to do this thing called a barbecue contest, he came to me and said, we should do this thing called a barbecue contest. And I was like, well, what is that? And we took the judging class and all that. So we took a class here in Kansas City from one of the longtime legends of Kansas City. And in that class, this was before we had cooked any contests. And this was 2000. This was March of 2001. And in that class, we had to make a barbecue rub for each entry. We had chicken, ribs, and maybe we had brisket or something. And so we had to make like 3 different rubs. And so for the chicken, we made this rub, and he kind of had this formula that kind of guided you, but then there was all these ingredients, and it was well, I like this and I like this, and we put it together, and it was the recipe that is now today Yardbird Rub. And in the class, they had us compete against the other class members, and we won chicken out of, that was the only time we'd ever competed, but it was really in a class, and we won chicken, and we thought, well, we're geniuses. Like,
Right.
We're going to knock this out of the park. Little did we know it would take us another 7 years to win a contest. But, and I'll also say that I didn't win chicken at any contest until 2012. So it took me 11 years to win chicken for the first time. And got a lot of second places, but just could not get first. And so we blamed the rub for a long time, and then we just realized we were bad chicken cooks. But so that's how Yardbird really started. It was like this thing we did in the class, and we tried it, and we thought, well, we're going to win. And then we go out to these contests, and we get our asses handed to us, and we blamed the rub, so we didn't use it every now and then. And
right.
Later, when my brother-in-law started to do roadside vending, he wanted to have something with our name on it that he could put on the counter and sell, and it was kind of a way for us to fund our competitions. And so I decided to, we had talked about it for like a year, and finally I said, well, I'm going to do it. And like I said, that was 18 years ago this month. And that was the only recipe we had. Everything else was, we were buying off the shelf, so it was the only original recipe we had, and it came out of that class, and wow. And here we are. So Bovine Bold was the second rub, and it really was kind of taking Yardbird and taking the same kind of formulation, but making it very different, and making it for beef. So again, I talked about how, some flavors need to be more bold for beef. So added Worcestershire powder, switched from white sugar to brown sugar, added a lot of oregano, added a lot more black pepper. So just really tried to put more flavors on top of, and if you try Yardbird and Bovine, they don't taste anything alike, but really they came from each other, but just became very different variants.
Okay. Okay, we got a question here. Are there any barbecue legends or mentors who have influenced your approach to cooking and rub development?
Oh my gosh, probably 1,000 of them. Frank Cox being number one, because I know he's listening.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like a million of them. And I'll say that I prefer the word legacy over legend, and there are people that I consider legends, and people that we all would consider legends, and so forth. But it's really those people that we consider legacies that are the most important. And Bill Arnold, who passed and who developed Blues Hog. We knew Bill before a lot of people knew Bill. We used to distribute Bill's Blues Hog sauce back when he was going store to store. We were taking care of the Kansas City market for him.
Yeah, that's my favorite sauce is Blues Hog.
Bill was amazing to us. Mike Davis, a laudable, taught me how to be a serious competitor. Rod Gray taught me, of Eat Barbecue and Pellet Envy, taught me um, about flavors. Gosh, I could just go on and on and on. Richard McPeak, which no one on this podcast probably knows, but he's a legend in Kansas City. He's one of the original American Royal Barbecue champions back in the 80s. Taught us about making sauces. Karen Putnam, who's in the Barbecue Hall of Fame, which nobody on this podcast probably knows. Karen was one of the original KCBS members. She was one of the early first Jack Daniels Barbecue World Champions. She won it in the 90s. She was the first female world champion in barbecue. Taught me about barbecue sauces. She was a huge mentor. And even people today, there are people that are contemporary that maybe have only been doing this 4 or 5 years. Mike Starr, Blazing Star. I've spent time with Mike at the shed in Ocean Springs, Mississippi this last weekend. I was on the phone with him today. I was on the phone with him last week. He's teaching me all kinds of things that I didn't know about, barbecue, the business of barbecue, all those things. So you're constantly learning, and there's legacies all around you. You just got to reach out to them.
Right. That's great advice. Like a wine cellar, where do you prefer to store your rubs?
Any place, basically in a cabinet's fine.
Okay.
If it's in your home, you're great. If it's out in the barbecue trailer in, storage or in your driveway or something, it's probably getting too hot or too cold, but
yeah.
Particularly too hot. But as long as the thing that kills rubs is sunlight, and it bleaches them in a second. And so, keeping your rubs out of sunlight, keeping your sauces out of sunlight, like sunlight's a killer. And as long as it's staying in a fairly climate controlled environment, like it doesn't have to be a wine cellar per se, but keep it out of sunlight. Whenever you go into a barbecue store and they've got something that's facing a window or can get seen by a window,
stay away from it. Okay, that's a good tip. Might be a dumb question, but I try to keep most of my rubs, in a cabinet. What makes them eventually, let's not congeal, but they become stuck, like what's causing that?
Yeah, it's just humidity. It's just humidity. And most of the time, most commercial rubs are going to have a little bit of anti-caking agent in them. It's very little. And so if you just hit them on the counter, hit them on your hand, they'll break up pretty easily. Some rubs are more adverse to caking or more adverse to humidity, and usually those are ones that and you can tell they almost get a little damp. Those are the ones that I would say, like, I don't worry about any of my seasonings expiring. Like, I don't feel like seasonings go bad. They may not be as fresh as they used to, but it's not like they're from 1933. It's like, if something's a couple years old, 2-3 years old, it's probably still fine. It's not going bad. There's nothing in it that can really make it go rancid or make it spoil. But if it's prone to humidity and you can kind of tell it just doesn't look the same, it's not granular. It's almost like it became a brick and looks a little like damp. That's when I would throw that out, because if there's that much moisture in it, I wouldn't trust that stuff's not potentially growing in it. But when it comes to seasonings, like, don't worry about them for the most part. they may look bleached, but there's really not much in them that can go rancid unless you're using like a butter rub, and even then, I'm not sure. But I mean, it's just dried seasonings and salt and sugar,
Right.
you know.
Okay. Do you still compete?
Not if I can help it.
Okay.
No, this year was the 2024 was the first year in 18 years that we didn't have a team at the American Royal, and um, again, we started this 25 years ago, and my focus right now is the radio show and education, and we had our run with restaurants, which was amazing for 10 years, and um, my my body doesn't keep up like it used to either. I'm 55, so no competing anymore, but starting to do some judging. Actually, it's been fun to go out. We went to the Apple City Barbecue in Murfreesboro, Illinois, and which is where 17th Street is. And Mike Mills is a legend and a legacy in barbecue and Hall of Famer. And his daughter Amy runs the contest. And so Andy Groneman, who's the host of the show, he and I went out to Murfreesboro and judged that contest today. And it was fun to not compete, but go into the judging tent, to go into the judging room and interact with the judges and start to listen and hear kind of how they perceive barbecue, because we've kind of been out of that for so long. We're used to being a team.
Yeah.
We're used to being a competitor. So to go in, the other half of competition barbecue is the judge. So to go in and hang with them, and we went in very under the radar. We didn't say who we were or anything like that, or that we competed or anything. But about halfway through the judging, people kind of figured out who we were, came about how we were, and all of a sudden the judges were like, okay, so how did they do this? And they were really, really interested in the process of competition.
Yeah.
And so we were able to kind of educate them a little bit, and that was pretty fun. Because that's really kind of, they just get the food. They don't understand what it took to get there. So to have that dialogue with judges was really, really fun, and something that we've done a lot of.
I think that's why, KCBS, why they do encourage you once you do become a judge to actually compete, so that you do get, a view from that side of it as well.
Yeah.
What's one tool, smoker, or grill accessory you can't live without?
Oh, man. Well, as soon as I get a smoke slinger, I'm sure it'll be that.
There you go.
But, Frank, oh my gosh, what is one thing I can't live without? Well, for me, it's probably a thermometer. Probably an instant read thermometer. You can throw any cooking appliance at me, I'll probably be okay. Any fuel, I could probably work it out. But I got to know what temperature things are at, for the most part.
Yeah. Okay. That would have been my answer too. A good instant read thermometer. Absolutely. All right. And we're getting Real Meat Stick says, yeah, you better believe you need a smoke slinger. I know. Yeah, I've been looking at that smoke slinger myself. It's pretty impressive. I think it's going to be on my list, my Christmas list.
It's the multi-tool of barbecue, I hear.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Swiss Army knife of barbecue. It looks like it can do everything. Very solid. And I was going to ask you, so you have experience as a restaurateur. You're still doing the rubs. I guess I kind of feel like I already know the answer to this, but which side has been, more fulfilling, or if you had it to do all over again, like what would you recommend to someone who, wants to make, working in barbecue, like, their career? Would it be better to go the restaurant route or to go the, maybe trying to create a rub and competing, which side would you recommend?
Wow. Well, I think the better answer is to do some catering.
Catering.
Is
Okay.
is is to sign up to do someone's birthday or holiday party or 50th wedding anniversary or something like that, where you've got 40 or 50 guests, and you have to cook some maybe you got to cook 3 or 4 briskets and 3 or 4 pork butts. And for some, look, at one point for me, that was like, I couldn't even dreamed of that. And so we all start somewhere. And so, instead of setting out to be, a rub and sauce mogul or a restaurateur or whatever, like, maybe the next step for you is to take this hobby and this passion and turn it into a minor profession, and start to do offer up your services for, hey, there's a Super Bowl coming up, or there's graduations coming. Hey, I've got pork butts. I'm going to sell whole pork butts for $40 a piece, 50
Yeah.
bucks a piece, $60 a piece. Start doing that kind of stuff, with friends and family, because I'll guarantee you that's how most of us started. I mean, that's how I started. We would do catering, and we would put, whenever we had chicken on the menu, we would always come with all this leftover chicken. And my dog's here wanting to say he needs to
All
go outside.
right.
Um, and so I came up with a smoked chicken salad recipe that was just phenomenal. And I would take all the leftover chicken from the catering and chill it down, and then make all this chicken salad and put it in pint containers. And then I would take all that to work on Monday, and it'd be gone within the hour. I would just, like, for all my little, like, under the radar friends, I'd be like, hey, I got chicken salad.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I got pork left, from the catering this weekend, or whatever. And I mean, you don't need a catering to do that. Just, like, get your friends and family and say, hey, I'm going to cook a bunch of chicken this weekend. Who wants it? And whatever's left, I'm making chicken salad or whatever. And it scratches that itch of, like I was saying earlier, I think as cooks, as pit masters, as grill masters, we want to please people. We want people to be satiated and happy. And so it's a way to scratch that itch without having to invest in a restaurant, without having to, invest in a bunch of commercial products and things like that. So I would say, do what you love and cook, and get some people, if they throw you a few bucks for it, great. Now you got money to go do it again.
Right. No, that's great advice. Actually, that's what you described is what I did, like, over the holidays. Just kind of getting my feet wet, offering it to do some briskets for friends and family. Took me up on that, and so yeah, I'm kind of going down that path. Although you mentioned you're 55, I'm 54, so I'm getting a real late start. But it's a passion. So
Yeah.
all right, so maybe this will be the one that we ended on. Real Meat Stick asks, what's next for Plowboys Rubs and Todd Johns?
Well, the radio show is what's next. Really excited. I've been co-hosting that for 2 years. This is starting our 5th season. I'm taking over as the executive producer. I love the show. I love its mission. Um, and I just really think that that's the next thing that's calling me. Um, as far as rubs and rubs and sauces, we've got 10 products. Only 4 of them are rubs. We've got 5 sauces and a bean starter. The bean starter was actually the recipe that we used in the restaurant. And after about a year of making beans every day, I finally thought, well, why don't I take all the ingredients that we mix in with the beans, go to my sauce bottler, and have them put it in 5-gallon buckets. And so we would do 60 gallons of beans at a time. And so then it was like, well, I got this bean starter that we're using in the restaurants. Why don't I put it in pint jars? And so that's how that product came about. So I don't know that there are more flavors in my future. I definitely want I want to get people experiencing more than Yardbird. Yardbird makes up 2/3 of what we sell, but we've got such a good portfolio of products. We've got such a good portfolio of flavors that I really want I want people to try those other things that we have because they're, to me, as good. Like my favorites are probably our lesser movers, like Tar Heel Tang, which people probably don't know about. It's our Carolina rub. Or Carolina sauce. It's a Piedmont style sauce, but instead of using red pepper flake, we use a habanero mash. So it's a fermented habanero, which means it isn't as spicy. So it's about on par with a red pepper flake, but it comes across a little fruitier because the fermented habanero gives off a little bit more of the fruitiness of the habanero, which has a lot of flavor to it more than just heat. So anyway, that's kind of from the product standpoint, that's my goal, is to try and encourage people to try more of our products. And just really leaning into this radio show. It's I did radio when I was in college.
Yeah.
It was something that I never thought I would do again, and it wasn't something I studied in college. It was kind of a part-time job when I was in college. So to be back doing radio air is a lot of fun, and learning about podcasts like you're doing, and so that's the next step for me is doing those things.
No, I get it. I love it. Actually, yeah, my undergrad was in radio television. Didn't do that as a career, but once I got into barbecue and started the YouTube channel and then decided to do the podcast, it was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of able to, marry a lot of the things that I've always been interested in, kind of talking about the subject matter that I love and pursuing it through the podcast, so it's been great. Well, Todd, I do appreciate you taking some time to share, your wealth of wisdom and barbecue. Now tell us again, because you're saying that basically what you're leaning into is the barbecue radio network. Let me get that back on the screen here. Hold on. There we go. Now tell us again. I know we can go to barbecueradionetwork.com, which is what I'm showing right now. But then the show comes on. It's weekly, right?
It is weekly, and we're syndicated on close to 100 radio stations, and you can catch all of the radio shows the following Thursday on podcasts. So anywhere you go to get podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or iHeart Network, we're on all the major podcast platforms. Just look up Barbecue Radio Network, and you can get all of the historical shows that we've done. We've had Hall of Famers from Tuffy Stone to Diva Q, Famous Dave, Meathead, um, on and on and on. I mean, it's the who's who of barbecue has been on the show or will be on the show this year. I've got a lineup of folks that's about a 50-50 split of some of our regulars that we've had on the show that are good, all-time guests, but I've got a few new people that I'm bringing on as well.
All right.
Alfredoni was one of them this last week. It was his first time being on the show.
Right. Well, fantastic. All right, guys. So get your fix. Tune in to the Backyard Smokemaster Barbecue podcast every Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. But then also, you can keep scratching that barbecue itch and go check out the Barbecue Radio Network. Like you said, it's syndicated, so it's probably on a station in your local area. And then if you're unable to catch it live, look for the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And also, guys, before we get out of here, I do want to remind you about the Backyard Smokemaster Society. So if you'd like to keep the conversation going, we do have a private barbecue membership. It works a lot like the community that we're fostering here on the podcast, where we talk about all things barbecue. We have monthly meetups, virtual meetups, where you don't just have to look at me on camera. You can turn on your camera and show us what you're cooking, or just, we can just talk to each other face to face. So we do that at least once a month. And I've got some ideas about some kind of micro engagements along the way. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you. Go to backyardsmokemaster.com/society to get more information about the Backyard Smokemaster Society. Think of it as like barbecue on Facebook, but we're not on Facebook. It's away from Facebook. All right. All right, guys. So again, thanks again to Todd. Appreciate you coming on. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. This is Kenyatta Robinson signing off on the Backyard Smokemaster Barbecue podcast. We'll see you next week. Take care. Get out there. Enjoy your grills and smokers. And we will see you soon.